Welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to talk about the 3 keys of soul remembrance, of integrating our true soul selves. Because, we live in a reality, a universe that is a free will universe. It is a universe that has created the illusion of separation from source and therefore from each other. And in that illusion, that's allowed us to make free will choices, because if we didn't have that illusion of separation, of not realizing that we were connected to source and therefore all interconnected to each other, then we wouldn't have a free will choice. We'd be under divine will, which is absolutely beautiful as well. It's just that in this universe, we wanted to experiment through a new lens of creation and perception, hence why we have this veil of forgetfulness. But it was always the organic plan that we would start to awaken, that the journey would be through our choices, that eventually it would lead us back to the remembering of who we truly are, to the integration of our souls, because it is our souls that carry the blueprints, the coordinates, to our highest timelines, to our destinies. But it is a choice to choose our destiny. We can choose to turn away from our destiny. And a lot of this environment that we're born into, there has been a deep level of overlay, infiltration, and manipulation to stop us from connecting to that, to create a lot of fears and illusions within our mental body and in our emotional bodies. And it's our emotional bodies that allow us, is the feeling that allows us to connect to source, to soul, to spirit, that allows us to open up our higher sensory perceptions and to start to really hear what our soul is guiding us to. And, why wouldn't you want, from my perspective, why wouldn't you want to remember why you incarnated and what you came here to do? And part of that is to awaken and remember and to move on to your highest timeline. But we've got a lot of infiltration, we've got a lot of conditioning, a lot of programming that can keep people from choosing their destiny, from hearing those calls, those nudges, and in staying trapped in the false matrix, illusional space, which does create a lot of suffering, a lot of disconnection, a lot of anxiety. You just have to look out into the world and we can see this play out. We can feel it in our own lives. We've experienced it in our own lives, and we can see it in the world at large. So I want to bring through these 3 keys, which is, the journey that I've been on, and it's how I have started to take back my power and become more and more sovereign by following these 3 keys. So key number 1 is we've got to turn on the lights. So what do I mean by turning on the light? It means we've got to start to see our shadows. We've got to start to be able to observe. So we become the scientist in our own lives. We don't hand over our power to experts, to what mainstream science tells us is reality and is not reality. We actually observe our own feelings. We observe our own thoughts. We observe our own experiences, and we observe them with compassion and without judgment, with the understanding that we've all been programmed to actually suppress our shadows, to feel guilty about them, to feel shame about them, and therefore not to see them. So for example, so it might seem like a paradox, right? It can seem like a paradox. Well, if it's in the shadow, how can I see it? Because we have to be able to see it. We have to start to open up our awareness. Awareness is us becoming conscious, right? When we start to become aware, we're moving out of the sleep state. We're moving out of the programmed self that keeps us unconscious, where these shadows are are basically running our life. About 95%, a huge percentage of our behaviors, our actions that we take are driven for many people by what's in the subconscious programs that they don't even realize are driving their lives. And then people think that this is fated, but it's not fate. Or maybe it is fate. It depends which way you want to look at it, right? Because I actually look at fate and destiny as I look at fate being the environment that we choose to be born into, because the soul does choose. We are not powerless, and we are certainly not victims. Victim consciousness is one of the shadows that we are programmed into in this reality to keep us feeling powerless, to stop us from connecting to our true power. So we do choose the environments that we come to. And yes, there's many, it's not, there's many different reasons for that. Without going into all of that, because I couldn't possibly know all of that for each person anyway, but without going into all of that, we do choose, and we're choosing to come into what you could call, I'd call that the fated life, in that it's fated through that we're going to be born into a certain family, into a certain culture, into a certain location, where we're going to be subject from birth to conditioning around culture, society, generational patterns and traumas, media, all these kind of things that are going to shape our world as children. And it's very inorganic to who we truly are. And it creates a lot of trauma, and it creates a lot of pain. And a lot of the true self is suppressed. So, for example, as children, one of the collective shadows is not feeling good enough. We are all taught as children, no matter which environment we are born, if we're born into, if we're rich or we're poor, wherever we're born into, on each side of the spectrum, we are taught that we are not good enough. Let's say we're a straight A student and we're doing it's still never good enough. An A is never good enough. It's got to be an A star, or we're always being compared to each other and graded against each other, like with some kind of clones, rather than being nurtured to see, well, what is it that we came in? What are our gifts? What are our talents? Why did we come into this incarnation? What is our soul's blueprint? That is, unless you're extremely, I'm sure there is some people that are born into families like, but most people are not born into that. And we taught that our natural ways of being as children, it just isn't good enough. And we have to please the adults in our life. We have to behave in certain ways to be seen as being accepted, to get love. So we start to feel that being our true soul self, it's not good enough, it's not accepted in this world. We're expected to act, behave, speak in certain ways. And as children, we start to create these patterns of people pleasing, let's say. So we have a feeling, I'm not enough. And that is very, very, so this is a shadow, this is a collective shadow. That is very painful for us as children to acknowledge. It creates a lot of discomfort and dis-ease in the body. Therefore, we push it down through mental programming. And we might say to ourselves, well, actually, if I get an A at school, then my mum and dad are happy with me. They give me love, they give me attention. So I'm going to work really hard at that. And I'm going to go after that achievement. So we start to suppress things into the shadows, and we go on these journeys, right? So then we can like wake up, like I woke up when I was around about, I thought I was awake. I realized I wasn't awake. My life was being run by subconscious program, which was absolutely fine, because it's part of the journey that we go on to awakening. So the first part of our lives tends to be the fated life, the programmed life, the life that is expressed outwardly through the inner program. So I had this program of not feeling good enough, always felt like I had to work harder. So I found myself in this career where I was working like a maniac, feeling, so no matter how many times I got so it didn't matter how many times I got promoted at work, I still didn't feel like I was good enough. I still felt like I had to work harder. I had to prove myself more. I had to do more. And I also started to discover this people pleasing aspect of myself as well. I started to realize that I was saying yes when really I wanted to say no, but I had to really start observing it, and it took me to like having a nervous breakdown. So one way that we start to see the shadows is that the universe is always giving us clues. It's a mirror, right? It's this holographic universe that we find ourselves in. Is this mirror reflecting back to us the energies and the programs within us. We might think that we have all these, say we're attracting these bad relationships, and we might be like, why does this keep happening to me? So I think about one of my relationships. It was really difficult. It was mentally abusive. And I had to really go deep and realize, that there was a part of me that just didn't feel good enough, right? And that pattern, more and more experience that I went through. And then I decided, well, I'm not going to put up with that. I'm not going to live. I decided I'm not going to put up with that, even though I felt this connection, this bond. I was like, I'm not going to live like that. And every time I stood in my power and realized I had a choice. I had a choice to stay in this toxic environment. I had a choice to make another decision. And every time I did that, I took back a little bit more power. I healed a bit more of that. So I could see that. I started to observe from a very young age, that actually what I was experiencing outside of me, if I decided to make a change inside of me, make new choices, that I could change my environment. And that was a path. So I started to realize, oh, I'm like a scientist in my own life. So I started to see that the world was reflecting things. And it was really in my mid-30s when I started to retrain in hypnotherapy, and I started to dive more into the subconscious realms, the mental body, the emotional body, that I started to realize that I had these patterns. I could start to see them. And honestly, it took me, it was like liberating, but it was really difficult for me to even admit to myself that I felt not good enough, because it felt like at the time, it felt like it was a weakness. It felt like it was a weakness, and I had to be really vulnerable to be able to admit that. I didn't want to admit that, because outwardly everyone thought I was so confident. And end of the day, I always pushed myself forward, but inwardly I felt stressed. I felt, oh my God, I didn't want to continue to live like that. And I started to and I started to think to myself, why, no matter how hard I work at work, there's more work finds me. And I started to realize that pattern. And as soon as I saw it and I admitted it to myself, that's when the healing began. So step one, I started to turn on the lights. I started to take responsibility for the environment that I was in, rather than say, which I used to say at one point, and I saw this all around me. I used to say, oh my God, this work is terrible. They just keep throwing all this work at me. It never ends. And that is true. That will continue, because that's the universe trying to help you, because it's your pattern inside that's drawing that to you, because you keep doing it and you keep doing it and you keep doing it. And if you're going to keep doing it, it's going to keep giving it to you. So I had to say, no, I'm not going to keep doing that anymore. And I did it, I did it bit by bit, taking back my power. And at first, so we've got to turn on the lights, right? We've got to see that whatever we are experiencing in our life, well, it is a reflection of the past. Now that doesn't, and we've got to look at that with compassion as well, right? Because it doesn't mean that we are bad. It's the total opposite of that. Everyone born into this reality is programmed with these anti-life, anti-self programs. This is part of the infiltration in this universe that we are in, this timeline that we are in right now. And it really takes courage and strength to see these. And we are meant to. The experiences will get tougher and tougher until we see them, right? And so we bring in awareness. So awareness is conscious. As soon as I started to realize, oh, I've got a pattern of people pleasing. And it took a while for me to see that. I had a few people say to me, Corinne, you always say yes. Like my boss said to me on a appraisal once, um, she was like, Corinne, you need to say no more. You say yes too much. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then sometimes it just takes a little seed to be planted, right? That's what we do for each other. We plant these little seeds. We help each other as divine mirrors as well to activate and wake up and remember. So I started to see this pattern, and I started to realize that I did have and again, I looked at it with compassion, because we're all programmed to people please. But what is behind people pleasing, right? When we start to turn on the lights and we start to observe and become our own scientists and realize these patterns, and these are generational patterns. Like, we come in, I go into this in a lot of depth in my Reconnect program, which you can check out in the description. But as we come in, we're coming into these generational lines, like picking up the baton. It's like a real relay race. We're like, right, I'm in now. I got this. I'm going to heal this. I'm going to do the work, right? And so we start to observe and we start to turn on. So all these experiences are there as mirrors. So there's always clues around us. So we start to see it through the clues, and we have to start to acknowledge that our mind is going to try and create a program to suppress that shadow. Why? Not because it is bad, not because it is wrong, but because the mental body is being, really programmed with a lot of bad data, and also the mind is there to the brain is there to protect you. It wants to protect you, so it thinks it's protecting you by holding those emotions down, those patterns, because again, we've been programmed to believe the emotional body is bad, is wrong. Certain emotions, if we feel fear, if we feel anger, if we feel shame, we feel that this is all bad, it's bad, so we suppress it. But when we suppress it, then it actually is drawing more experience. It's stuck in our energetic bodies, and it's blocking the soul from fully coming in. And it's a trap. So the soul wants to come in so you can get onto your highest timeline, so you can fulfill the blueprint that you came here to fulfill. So you're going to be drawing as a mirror, as an energetic magnet, things to you that are going to trigger that shame, that guilt and stuff. But often the mind is then trying to repress it. So the mind would tell me, you need to be, so before I was awake, when I was working like a maniac, I nearly had 2 nervous breakdowns. My mind would tell me, I'm just responsible. I just have a good work ethic. I'm just really good at my job. I just really, that's what my mind would tell me. That would keep me stuck in that pattern. So I started to see it. So I started to see it. I started to realize that was just a coping mechanism, and I needed to dissolve those. So first thing you've got to do is you've got to turn on the lights. And it's not a paradox, because especially we are living in epic times right now. We're living in a moment in our evolution where the planet is ascending in its consciousness, and therefore every single biological system on the planet is also ascending. We are ascending. And what was in the shadows through frequency fences, well, it's getting harder and harder to repress them. They're just coming up. I'll link a video at the end where I talk about the subconscious and the conscious merging. They're starting to merge well. So we're getting gifted now an easier ability to see with our true light these shadows, and to see them with compassion. So we see these aspects of ourselves, that these shadows that want to please other people, and we look at that people pleasing, and we look at it with compassion. We don't judge it, and as soon as we can start to see it, we can start to make different choices. And the first time you make a different choice against a pattern that's been subconscious and it's now coming up and it's been driving your life, then it's gonna take courage, because it's gonna feel really uncomfortable, because we have those patterns to protect ourselves. So what is people pleasing about? If you look below the surface, we please others because that's how, as children, we got accepted, and we need to be accepted in a community. That's how we got love. That's how we were rewarded. And if we didn't, often love was withheld from us. We might have been punished. We might have experienced a lot of bad things if we didn't please other people in our lives. So we start to learn from a young age that so underneath people pleasing is really the I don't matter. What I want, it doesn't matter. My needs are not important. Therefore, I am not good enough. So as an adult, every time we are people pleasing, we are reinforcing that program. So we have to face that program. We start to see it and be like, whoa, and take responsibility. We turn on the lights. We've really got to, in order to really awaken to our soul and to integrate our true soul self, we have to take radical responsibility. And I'm going to do a video about that on my other channel that I co-host with my friend and mentor, Valentina Matthews, where we're going to talk about radical responsibility. So at some point I'll go back and link this here. Oh, I can't link it. I'll put it in the description when I can, when we've done the video. But we've got to take responsibility. We've got to realize that we are a co-creator in our experience. That it's things don't happen to us. They happen. They don't happen to us. They happen as part of our co-creation with it. And as we start to become aware, then we can start to make another choice to dissolve those things in our experience that we don't want to experience anymore, that we've learned from. We've been like, okay, I've experienced it. I don't want to do it anymore. This is not jiving with me. So awareness is the key. And we do that through observation, through turning on the light, i.e. becoming conscious of it, bringing awareness in it, bringing in truth, light. We realize people pleasing is actually a false light program. And by that, what do I mean is it appears to be something on the surface that is light. Well, it's nice to do nice things for other people, right? And whilst there's an element of truth to that, of course, we all benefit from giving and receiving in equal balance. We all benefit from that, of course. But when we are doing it to which most people pleasing programs are, to a perspective where our needs, our desires, our wants, our internal guidance is constantly being suppressed, then we are not in equal exchange, and we are actually harming ourselves. And then when we are harming ourselves, that energy is moving out into the whole collective and it's impacting it. So by, pleasing others at our own expense all the time, then no one's living a life in alignment, right? So we can see that it appears on the surface, but when we go below the surface, we realize it's a false light program. It's not true light to carry those programs. So we start to see it and we start to make different choices. So when we turn on the light and we start to become aware, we bring truth, we bring knowledge. It actually starts to dissolve it, because then once we see something, it's very difficult to unsee something once you see it with your awareness. Your awareness starts expanding. And then what's going to happen is the universe is going to give you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to dissolve that pattern. So we might fear it at first, right? Because below that pattern is, well, so if I don't please someone, if I've been pleasing someone like a friend all my life, let's say, and doing everything they want to do, but I don't really want to do it anymore, and I'm not doing the things I want to do, then we maybe fear that when we say to them no, they're going to stop being our friend, they're going to reject us. And sometimes that is the case, because we've created false relationships with people, because we've created relationships through our trauma, through our wounding, through our subconscious patterns. So sometimes that does happen, and that is something on our journey of evolution that we just have to start to again expand into the truth that sometimes relationships, soul contracts that we have with people, they're there to help us see our shadows. They're actually there. So some of these really difficult relationships we have, like a really difficult relationship I had with one of my exes, which was really difficult mentally. I know on meeting that person, I had a soul contract with them, and I realized that, I could see into their soul, and I could see the true soul self. And I realized that contract was there to help me to see my own shadows, so I could dissolve those shadows and start to move on to my destiny path. So I'm grateful for that. And that person is no longer in my life, because they wasn't meant to stay in my life when I started to empower myself. So you're going to find when you start to empower yourself, as you turn on the light and you bring awareness, that that's just people fall out of your life, and that's okay. But new people come into your life, or some people, they still stay in your life because they level up with you. So I mean, I've kind of moved into key 2 a little bit here just by talking. So key 2 is alchemizing the shadow. So when we've become aware of it, we start to alchemize it. This is when the real deep shadow work starts to take place. And again, it's so important to have compassion, non-judgment to the self about these shadows. It doesn't make us bad, and it doesn't make us wrong. We're both the shadow and the light, and that is part of who we are, and that is fine. But it's when we start to take those distortions of the shadow and dissolve it with the light, then we alchemize it. So that is by, once we've seen it, we can start to do the shadow work, and we can do that in so many different ways. I've already really just talked about that. It's by once we're aware, we start making different choices, and it might be that, and the universe is going to bring you so many opportunities every single day to make a different choice. And it might be the first time we do it, our heart is racing, and the second time we do it, it's fine, and the third time we do it, it's fine. And what I would say to you, one thing that I realized very early on as I started to really go in this deep shadow work was that one thing that when we are saying no, that we can over defend, that we feel like we've got to say no because I've got this to do, and that we've got to explain ourselves. So this is a key as well that's really going to empower you, is you can just say no. And you don't have to give excuses or reasons. You just say no, and you say it with compassion. It doesn't have to be, it's not about, it's just saying no, this is not for me or whatever. So we don't have to make excuses neither. So we start to alchemize the shadow, and we do it in many different ways. We do it consciously. So we've got to work in both realms of being, right? We've got to work consciously and in our unconscious realm as well. We've got to work in all aspects of ourselves. So consciously, we're being aware in our day. And when we start to be aware in our day, well, that's when we start to live. That's when we actually wake up and start to live, and we're no longer a zombie asleep, right? It's amazing when we start doing this. It's amazing how fast your consciousness will start to expand, and you'll start to see the patterns all around you in other people. You'll start to see this robotic subconscious programs that we've all been programmed into, right? So and this can challenge other people around you as well, but and there can be things as you're going through this journey where people really trigger these parts of you, but like I say, it's there to help you to see it. So we consciously work at it by consciously being aware when we're in a situation. Am I people pleasing? Am I honoring the self? Am I trying to be a perfectionist, right? So another sign of not feeling good enough is trying to make everything perfect, right? And, when I started to become aware of this back in, I can't remember now, 2018 or something, and I started to move from working in, I was still working in finance, but I was retraining in hypnotherapy. I was starting to explore this world. I was experiencing things, I was embodying things, and I wanted to share things, and I had to quickly see that pattern of wanting to be perfect and decide I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be authentic. I just need to be real. I used to watch other people on YouTube, and the people that I used to really connect to were the people that were just being real, that were just being authentic. They didn't have to necessarily have a polished YouTube video. Not that you can't have that, right? But you don't have to be this perfect video. It was just someone stood talking about their experiences, being real, being vulnerable, sharing those parts of themselves. And that's what really inspired me. And I was like, okay, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be real. I just have to be authentic. I just have to have the courage to do that. And that helped me get started with sharing my message. And part of that helped me to expand and grow as well. So we have to start being conscious in our lives and taking responsibility. So we're making new conscious choices. We're looking at those areas of our life that stop us from doing the things that we really want to do. And we start questioning them. Why? What is below that? What is the real program stopping me from doing it? Do I not feel good enough? Do I not feel smart enough? Why don't I feel like that? What's telling me that is the truth for me? And then that starts our healing, right? We make new choices. We use courage. We move right through it, and it starts to dissolve those layers. And, like if I think about when I first started putting content out a long time ago, to where I am now, it's just, it's just such a, I don't script my videos. It's all about organics. And I also don't give myself always pressure that you must put, and I'm not saying that you can't do this, right? You've got to find what is right for you, what is in alignment with you. But there's always so much advice out there. Do this, do that. No, you've got to find what is authentic to you, what works for you. And for me, what works is sharing when I've got something organic to share, when I've really got something I've embodied, because that's how I help people to activate, remember, and wake up. So I had to find my own organic rhythm, and then stand in my power, and not let all these outside influences tell me how, and I've definitely been through learnings of having those outside influences tell me how I needed to show up to be successful or to do this. And I've had to learn to listen to my own guidance, which we're going to get onto in key 3. So we work consciously, we take responsibility, we see the patterns, we question, we observe, we start to make new choices. That starts to instantly, as soon as you start to see it, you're starting to alchemize it. We start to instantly alchemize it, but we need to work in the energetic world because the subconscious mind is being programmed, right? Once it's programmed through repetition and emotion. So think about when you're learning to walk as a child. Once you've walked, I don't know how many times, but you've done it on repetition a few times, boom, it's a program. You get up now. You don't think how to walk. You don't think how to brush your teeth. It's a program. You know, people that drive know this. You don't think how to drive. It's a complete subconscious program. So anytime you're changing a subconscious program, it takes consciousness, it takes will, it takes energy, it takes focus. That is where your power lies. And so when we're doing this consciously, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of focus. And that's why a lot of people fall back into the subconscious patterns because they can't go long enough consciously to change everything. So we've got to work multi-dimensionally, right? We work on the conscious realm, but we work also in the subconscious world. So we would work this way in healing through things like hypnosis. So that's how I work. I work with quantum Akashic hypnosis. That's what I love. I love it because when I was working in the finance world and I was so stressed, I wanted a way to heal that I could just relax. And that's, you know, and I wanted a way of healing that worked on all levels of my body. So quantum hypnosis works on all levels of your emotional body. It's multidimensional, right? At the same time, it's helping your physical body, your nervous system, so many different, it's got so many layers. So that was my choice. These meditations, you know, a lot of inner child healing is needed. And we do this in the subconscious realm. We lay back, we close our eyes, and we go on journeys, often guided journeys, you know, with healers that have taken that path themselves. You know, it's really important, and I've realized this myself, that you can only really help someone else. You know, everybody is their own healer, so you really want to be working with somebody, you know, that is going to empower you to do that, right? Because, and that's why my program is different, because when I first started, and this is no disrespect to anyone that does this, FYI, but when I was training traditionally in hypnotherapy, I was like, okay, so someone comes, they sit in my chair, I am working to reprogram their mind. And again, it's up to the person in the chair, right? Hypnosis is misunderstood. I can't make you do something you don't want to do. There is a very small percentage of people that are highly, highly hypnotizable in that way. But the truth is, we consent on certain levels of our being, right? But for me, it didn't feel empowering enough, right? I wanted to be able to teach the things that I was learning about the mind, about the body, so that you become your own healer. Because the truth is, you are your own healer. Any good therapist, any good healer is going to connect you to that truth, but it's you that is the healer. The healer is the person that's the gateway, the person that invites you into it, that uses their skills and gifts to connect you to your own inner healing. So you want to be empowered on this journey, because it's about becoming a sovereign being and taking back your power. So you are going on this journey of energetically clearing timelines, right? Because as we're going through, you know, a lot of what we experience as children, actually we're bringing that in from many, many different past lives. We're inheriting it from the ancestral line. So a lot of people might think something they're experiencing now relates to something that happened in childhood. And you might be able to see an experience in childhood and be like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But actually, usually it's rooted much further back, and your childhood experience is just a echo of the patterns that you're bringing in, right? So we've got to go way beyond. We've got to go into all these timelines, because what happens is our soul gets fragmented. It gets stuck on these timelines. It's like you can think of it as frozen in time. Parts of us that are in trauma, parts of us that are in fear. We have all these inner children, parts of us that are like feel suppressed, that feel like they can't speak, they've been shut down, they're in fear, they're silenced, they're living in terror, and they're stuck on these timelines. And this is where we start, and this is where it starts to become so amazing. This is why I love the awakening healing journey, because not only are you becoming conscious and aware, and your consciousness is expanding, you're starting to learn the true laws of the universe. You're starting to allow that, you're starting to wake up and remember. You start to realize, oh, time is not really linear the way we are programmed to believe, where we believe the past is in the past. And it's like, a lot of programs don't look back. The past is in the past, leave it there. But that's not the truth. The past is right now if it's not healed, right? And your future is being created from your past if your past isn't healed. So if you've got parts of yourself in your past, wherever those timelines have come from, whether it's 100 lifetimes ago, 1,000 lifetimes ago, on another planet, whatever, if there's a part of you that is frozen in time from a trauma and that trauma isn't healed, then you are playing that. In fact, I'm going to link in the video one of my wounds that I've carried from Atlantis. From a mentor. So I'm going to link a video that you can watch about that, and you can see exactly how I carried that trauma into this life. So the past is not in the past. The past is right now. Everything is happening simultaneously. So we start to expand and see this, and we start to realize that your past is impacting you right now. So if you've got a wound from your past and it's not healed, then you're going to be taking actions that are based on those past experiences of wounding, of trauma, and that is creating your future, right? So we have to alchemize these timelines. So we go back to go forward, right? So we're simultaneously going back while we're going forward in time, and we're rewriting those timelines. We're realigning the energetics. We're changing the architecture of those imprints. So again, I talked about emotion, right? Emotion is our access to soul, to spirit, to memory. Think about the things just in your short life right now, watching this video. Think about the things that you remember the most. They're going to be the things that created the biggest emotional charge, because emotion, energy, emotion records things in the energetic field. It creates an imprint in the energetic field, and that imprint can be accessed, and it's easier to access an imprint that has a bigger energetic charge. So whilst everything is imprinted, it's the things with big energetic charges that we really can bring back into our memory, which we can access much easier. So we start to learn these things as we go on the healing, awakening, and transformation and journey of reconnecting back to the self. So what are we doing through this alchemization of the shadow? Well, what we're doing is we're actually determining through observation. So we're working in the energetic world on the inner child to heal these things. We're also working in the energetic world to release emotions that have got stuck in the body, because if your body's blocked up with emotions that are supposed to flow out, then again, it takes up space in your body and your soul can't move in, and you're being operated from these repressed emotions of fear. So, we'll experience this with people around us, right, that just overreact to the most simplest of thing, right? Something that's just, someone pulls out on them on accident on a road, right, and they'll react like someone's just been shot. We've all experienced this and we might have ourselves acted like that at times, right? We've all experienced these total overreactions of emotion to something that's just like, wow, that is a repressed emotion and trauma that is trying to get out of the body. And rather than the person face that, they project it onto an experience that is just there to trigger it, really. So we overreact when we do our healing work, neither. So we're healing in that energetic space as well. And when we're healing through quantum hypnosis or meditative journeys or plant medicines or whatever, or a combination of the lot, there's so much out there holistically. There's so many amazing holistic modalities that we can plug into that are going to connect us back to our true soul self. It's all about coming back into the body, into the inner world. It's the inner journey that creates the outer reflection. And it's the reorganizing of our energetic bodies that create harmony and peace in our outer world and connect us back to our divine blueprint. So it's in that what we're actually doing is, as we're working in both these fields, we're actually working out what is the false self. So the false self, I see the false self as the programmed self, as the fated self, perhaps, all these fated circumstances that we're born into. So we're going to get those programs. The programs that I experienced as a child are going to be a lot different to, let's say, so one of my best friends is Asian, she's Indian, and she grew up here, her parents grew up in India, and she's got that culture, right? So a lot of her programs are different to my programs because she grew up in a different set of circumstances. So she's got some different challenges to alchemize as I have to alchemize. So the fated self or the false self, the programmed self, is not bad or it's not wrong. It's just a product of the environment that we're in. But that is the self that keeps you disconnected from the true soul self. So what we're working out as we're using our light, we're turning on the lights to our shadow, then we start to alchemize the shadows. We're working out what is the false self? What is the self that's created by these false rules, regulations, that's created to keep us in suffering, in feeling like the world's supposed to be hard, that there's lack. It's really lack consciousness. It's really separation consciousness, that we're all separate from each other. We need to compete against each other. That if you do well, then it's a reflection on me. This false self, and we're working out what is the true self, what is the soul self. And as we start to dissolve, so we're delayering the false self. And as we're delayering it with the true self, right? So as we delayer and alchemize the false self, and we bring in the true self, then we start to move into alignment with our destiny. We start to things start to accelerate. And it's not to say that everything's easy. It's a journey. It's a journey of de-layering those layers. But it's like I say, it's joyful, it's expansive. You're going to start aligning with your soul tribe. You're going to start aligning with, you're going to start feeling more truth, more authenticity. You're not going to be afraid of feeling negative emotions. You're going to, you're going on a journey of realizing emotions aren't bad and they're not wrong. They just are, right? And we're supposed to experience emotions. We're supposed to allow the emotion to move through us rather than suppress it. And it's when they suppress that we then react to situations and we project it onto other people. So we're going through a journey of working out what is what and dissolve. We're not killing the false self. We're not throwing it away. We're not like, you're bad, you're wrong. We're looking at it with compassion, with love. Actually, the false self, without the false self, would you wake up to the true self? You start to realize, some of those really difficult patterns have been some of my greatest blessings, because without recognizing that I felt not good enough, I wouldn't have started going on this deep journey of remembering. And I could have spent my whole life never connecting to why I came here, and then get to the end of my life and be like, shit, I wasted that incarnation. I failed. And people say like, and I used to say this like, all paths are valid, and all paths are valid. I do believe all, a path is a path. It is a path. We're going to learn something from each path. However, the truth is that we are going to feel some level of, damn, I didn't do what I came here to do. We get to the end of our incarnation and we didn't fulfill our blueprint, right? Because that's why we have a blueprint. We want to fulfill it. It's at some point we're going to have to face ourselves and do this work, and it is facing these shadows, and people are made to fear the shadows so much. When you start facing it, you don't have to fear it, and you start to realize, your shadow is your friend. It's like I started to get this visual of like when I started to do the inner child work, and I'd see these like inner children all stood in a row, and I'd see this one inner child that was like, I'm the one that doesn't feel good enough. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's created all these uncomfortable emotions, and I've been through all this like stress and anxiety, and then all of a sudden it just takes off its mask and it's like, but I'm the light. It's like, but really I'm the light, because all of these things really are the light, and they're here to help us wake up and remember who we are. They're here for us to find the light, because if we don't experience the dark, do we look for the light? And when we experience the dark, it actually expands the light. So I'm just going to share this with you because it's just coming in. But when I was doing my Reconnect program, and one of the weeks is called forgiveness. And when I was doing that week, I was just sat and I was just contemplating. I just said to Source, what does it mean to forgive? What does it truly mean? And what came in instantly was, well, forgiveness is unconditional love. When you're in forgiveness, you are directly connected to Source, because the fabric of forgiveness is unconditional love, compassion, acceptance, understanding. And that is what Source is. Source is unconditional love, is love without condition, doesn't judge us for the choices that we make, has understanding, acceptance, love, and holds us. And, it's easy to have forgiveness when something is not challenging us, right? It's easy to be in unconditional love to someone that's just really lovely and nice, and like let's say our animals. Like, it's so easy to have unconditional love for our animals. They're just so amazing, right? But how easy is it to have unconditional love when someone's really deeply hurt you? Now that means expanding your light way beyond. You've got to really dig deep. You've got to really go below so many layers and really. So when you are, so it's like you're expanding your light beyond what you would. So through this, through experiencing the shadow and the light, the duality, we expand our light even more. Our light becomes, if it's possible, it becomes stronger. So that's two, alchemize the shadow. So many gifts come from that. And as you can see, point one and two, they don't happen. It's not in a linear order. These are happening simultaneously. They're happening all at once. It's like I say, when you start to heal, you start to awaken and you start to transform. But when you start to awaken, you start to heal and you start to transform. All these things happen simultaneously. As you are dissolving these emotions out of your body, you're at the same time bringing in more soul, but it's the bringing in more, you're making room for your soul to come in. But it's the soul that comes in that dissolves them. Can you see how it's not one and then the other? It's happening all at the same time. So again, when you go on this journey, especially when you're working in the subconscious realms for quantum hypnosis, quantum meditation journeys, you start to really understand this on an embodied level. You've got to embody. It's not about the logical mind. You go beyond the logic and you embody it and you start to, oh, it's beautiful. So, and then we've got key number 3, which is remembering the soul's language. Now, again, so this is happening simultaneously. So this is where, so by this key, what I mean is we've got to start to remember how our soul communicates to us, how spirit communicates to us, how source communicates to us, the universe, the consciousness, living, loving energy that runs through everything. We have to remember, and then we've got to learn how to trust that communication as well. And again, a lot of, as you dissolve in your shadows, you're starting to awaken this anyway. We're starting to learn about our other senses beyond the 5 senses that we taught about. We're starting to bring in our higher sensory, our higher perception senses, right? We're starting to remember about our intuition. We're starting to feel that, but we've got to start to observe it, right? We start to realize that the world, that our soul communicates with us. And so it doesn't like necessarily just, just show up in front of you, but it can, right? But it doesn't necessarily just show up in front of you and say, right, this is what you need to do. No, it's not how it works, right? You've got to start to tune into the subtle energetic realms, which again is beautiful because you start to see the interconnectedness of all of life. You start to remember you are a cell in this whole organism that is one. And again, I'm going to link a video that's going to help you visualize that in a new way as well. So we start to realize that our souls, they communicate to us through signs and synchronicities, through inner nudges. I started to realize that a song would just drop into my head, or I'd just start singing this song and I'd be like, wow, where's that song come from? And then I could start to see that maybe I'd look at the lyrics and there'd be a message in there about a question that I had. So ask questions, so, and then I might start to repeating numbers. So often with people, as they start on this awakening journey, they start to see repeating numbers. Again, I'll leave a video about that at the end. And it might be that, so back in 2023, so intuition is major. Actually starting to really tune into our own intuition, because what is intuition? It is our inner teacher, our inner tuition. It is our soul, our guides communicating with us through our other senses, through our clairs. So we have to start to pay attention. We have to start to learn how our own soul communicates with us, because it's not necessarily the same as somebody else. While there might be similarities, we all have our own unique way of communicating with our souls and with spirit. So we've got to start learning that. We have to pay attention to it to learn it. So we might pay attention to the fact that I hear we just start singing a song. Why did you just start singing a song from 20 years ago? A memory just comes into your mind. Why? Now, you might not understand why at the time, and you don't need to, if you get too much into your head, so you start to learn, okay, I don't know why you're showing me this right now, but I'm going to bank it. And sometimes a song will just come in and I'll be like, okay, interesting, you're showing me that song right now. Why are you showing me that song? I'm just going to bank it and it'll come to me. And then a few days, weeks later, it'll be shown to me why, or I might look at the lyrics and see, it answers a question I've got. So repeating numbers is a major one. So that's what I was trying to say. So back in 2023, just as an example, when I first started seeing repeating numbers, probably in 2017, at first, I'd look at what do they mean, all these angel numbers, and you can do that, right? And it's a valid way to start connecting for sure. But the truth is, it's personal to you. So no one can really tell you what those numbers are telling you. You have to tune into your own inner guidance, and you start to do that over time through observation, through connection. So I started to realize that so for example 2000, sometimes I just get this thought that had come into my head, a real clear thought. So for example 2023, I just heard that this year I'm leaving the matrix, the false matrix. This was at the end of 2023, so I just wrote it on my board, this year I'm leaving the false matrix, 2023. That was my goal. And as soon as I'd said that, I saw the number 444 and I was like, oh, there's my sign. So I'd start to realize that often a repeating number me would just pre that number would be a profound thought that would come into my mind, a direction, an instruction, some goal. So I could start to realize, and there's many other things that they will lead you to as well. But I had to start observing them and realizing, and if I didn't know, that was fine. I'd just be like, I could sometimes I'd just smile to myself, knowing, oh, it's my guide, it's my soul, just letting me know I'm on the right path. I'm awakening, I'm following my inner guidance. So we have to start to learn how the world communicates with us. And another thing that we've got to do, so we're paying attention to our intuition. We're starting to learn to trust our intuition by paying attention. And in that, sometimes we're not going to listen to our intuition. So again, for example, and I love this example because this shows how the past, present, and the future don't truly exist in the way we are taught it exists. So I was going to London, I was driving to London to see a friend, and the day before, a memory came into my mind about how years before I'd overfilled my car with oil, and basically my car was, I had to go into the garage. I was lucky actually, but anyway, that memory came into my head and I thought, oh, maybe I need oil. And I looked at my car and there was no oil light on. So my programming went, nah, it's fine. You don't need oil. You guessed it, halfway down the trip, boom, my oil light comes on. I was like, oh man, that was my soul seeing the future, seeing that if I didn't put oil in the car in the here and now, I was going to run out of oil. So it was giving me a memory. It was communicating with me so that I would connect the dots and be like, let's put some oil in the car. So whilst it wasn't the end of the world, right? It cost me more money. It was a bit of a pain. It wasn't the end of the world. And to be honest, I was so grateful that I ignored my intuition then, because it taught me so much. There's going to be times when you ignore your intuition, but as long as you reflect on it, it's going to be there for you to learn something. So I learned, wow, that was my intuition speaking to me. Future, when a memory pops in like that, I'm not just going to ignore it. I'm going to listen to my intuition. So it taught me that. It showed me very clearly how the future interacts with the now, right? And also, actually, if you in my Reconnect program, that was shown very clearly through that. It was actually quite magical. So you start to see these things through communicating with your soul, with your spirit. So another thing, it's really important to communicate with your soul and your spirit is to actually invite them in. You've got to acknowledge them. Like, it's like, I say it this way, like, your soul, it's not going to give up on you. It's going to keep nudging you. It's going to keep trying to get you on its path. At least I think so. I'm going to look into this in your Akash, but, because maybe eventually your soul's like, not to be like, they're just, maybe it gets to a certain point in your life and they're just like, they're never going to wake up, they're never going to pay attention no matter what. I don't know, because your soul is in more than one body, right? But I'm not sure about that. But, your soul's going to keep trying to nudge you. It wants you to awaken. It wants you to get into your highest path. You are it. It is you. It loves you as its child, right? It created your body to come into. So it wants to get in and have you living an amazing life in alignment with your destiny. But it's a free will choice. You've got to choose your destiny. And many fears are there. This is why we do this work, right? Because the fears are there to turn you away from your destiny. So as you're alchemizing it, every time you alchemize a shadow, every time you see the truth with light and you alchemize it, you are moving on to your destined path. You are up leveling constantly. And it does take courage because it's going to be going against a lot of expectations, potentially, a lot of programming, potentially. Other people often, when we're doing this work, it could create a lot of disharmony for them because it reflects, because you're a mirror to them as well. So it can make them feel fearful. But this is just part of the journey that we're going together. And this is how we help each other to see our shadows and expand and grow. So we've got to invite them in, right? So if we just ignore, so I think of it as like a child or something. It's not a child, but it's in like, if you had a child and you're constantly just going, no, you're just constantly ignoring the child. Every time it tries to talk to you, every time it tries to tell you something, and you're just constantly like, no, I ain't got time for you. No, I'm too busy. No, and you just constantly like, eventually that child's just going to sit in the corner like, I give up, can't be asked, right? Whatever. It's going to be much, it's going to be like, or it's going to bring an even bigger, massive experience into your life to wake you up, right? Often people, when they talk about near-death experience, I'm not saying this is going to happen, by the way, FYI, but, people talk about near-death experiences. These are big awakenings for people, and people realize, oh, I was so off path. And this was to get me on path, right? In a big way. So we experience things to get us back on path. So we've got to invite in our spiritual team. They cannot interfere with our free will. We've got to choose to follow our soul's guidance. Our soul, there's only so much it can do, and it can do a lot. But this, it can give us the guidance. It can tell us, you need to put some oil in your car. And that's a really simple, but there's so many more profound things, right? It can tell us, it's trying to make our life, it can see above the matrix, right? And it can see, oh, if you go down that road, oh, it's going to be a bumpy road. But if you just take this choice and go down this road, it's going to be much more sail smoothing, right? It can see this and it can help to guide us. But if we don't listen, if we don't understand, because we haven't spent the time learning to know who we are, to go on that journey of self-discovery, of remembering, then it's not going to be heard, right? So we're just going to continue to bump our heads and go around in circles on this like Groundhog Day, just continuing the same patterns over and over. And it's so exhausting to do that. Like, people think it's exhausting to go on the work of healing, but it is so not. It is freeing because you're taking back your power. You're severing places where your energy is being siphoned out of your body. Your energy is being siphoned when you're unconscious to these programs. It's exhausting for people to go around the same patterns. And some people would go their whole life doing that. That is exhausting. But we are in a time, if you're watching this video, you are not one of those people. You are not here for that. You are here to break these generational, ancestral patterns and to do this work. And this work is so rewarding. So we invite in our spirit team. We invite them in, we let them know, they can't do everything for us, of course. Like, they're there to keep us on path. We've got to make choices. We've got to take the steps, and we're the physical aspect that has to take the actual steps. We have to work in collaboration with our soul. That's how we integrate it. And that's how the soul starts to move in, and the soul starts to become the driver rather than the programmed ego. The programmed ego starts to dissolve, transform, and the soul becomes the driver, and the ego starts to program in a new way that supports the soul's path. So you can do a really simple practice of just every day, just asking, just say I'm connecting into my highest soul self, to my highest organic spirit team, my guides and helpers that are there for my highest intention. And if you want to work, I work with my ancestors as well, but make a point of saying your healed, vibrant ancestors. You only want to be working with your healed, vibrant ancestors. So we're saying, like, I'm connecting into my highest soul self, my highest self, however you want to call it, into source, into my highest soul spiritual team of guides and helpers, my healed vibrant ancestors. And I'm giving you permission today to assist me in any way that is in my highest good. Just something simple like that. And maybe you've got a question and you need help with something, and you can just say to them, like, I really need some guidance on this. Please show me some really clear signs, some really clear confirmations. Give me the next steps and let it go. And you'll be amazed at how, as you start that journey, you've got to do this consistently, guys. You've got to build a relationship. Like, again, think about it as having a relationship with a person. if you just speak to them once, you're not building a relationship. You've got to create an actual relationship with your soul and with your team. And that's going to grow and develop. And you're going to learn how they communicate with you. You're going to learn how to trust the signs, what signs you can trust. You're going to start to create this discernment. So we're doing all these things, three things at the same time. And as we're doing all these three things, all these three keys are aligning us every single day that we're doing it, we are aligning more and we're going deeper and deeper onto our destined timeline. So I'm going to leave it there because I feel like I probably made that longer than I anticipated, but those are my main three keys. This is how I live my life. These keys are central to my life. I am always observing, alchemizing, and I also, it's really, I've also found like, having a mentor, like, that's what I do through my Reconnect program. Helps us as a mirror as well. But we have to realize we are the healers, we are the empowerment. It's actually about becoming sovereign in our own beings. And I'm here to help people that want to follow that path, want to open up their destiny, and live a life of abundance, of part of creating the new earth timeline, basically. So these three things, I embody these, right? This is not just 3 points someone's told me about on YouTube, right? This is what I have learned through my own experience of awakening, healing and transformation, and it continues to deepen. But the last few years, it's just really opening up for me. The energies are changing. I am actually anchored onto the new earth timeline, and I've created a bridge to help people move over to that. And holding that energy, I continue to be focused. It's part of my being, right? This has to be part of our being. And we realize that our whole world gives us the opportunity, every single interaction, to implement these three keys, and it just becomes natural. It just becomes part of our being. We start to see, our third eye activates, right? Our intuition strengthens. We start to just know things, right? Our knowing, our sense of gnosis switches on more, and we can see beyond the veil. We can see the true energetics. So we can see the false timelines. We can see the false programming, and we can see below it. And what does that mean? It means that these external forces that have been there to infiltrate and manipulate us, well, we're immune. We become immune to it. We're no longer pulled around like many people are that are not doing this work, because we can see it. We can see through it. It becomes like for me, it's just like neon flashing lights. It's so obvious. But that's happened over time through my dedication and my devotion and my commitment to this path, that I commit to every single day. And it's not a chore to do it. It's fun and I love it, and it makes me feel alive. And that connection to other people, my soul tribe, to the universe, to nature, to source, to my soul, just grows and grows. So yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.